Prather.
I think this works. Don't run off too far. Let's see if this will work. Bring me that one back. I'd rather have that anyway. Yeah.
Here. This thing, this is too small. I'll break it. I don't know where to stick
Chad,
it.
clip it.
Clip it?
It's wireless. Everything's wireless.
Stick it. I don't know.
Just clip it. It does the rest.
Well.
It's recording you. That's not a microphone.
Oh, okay. It's just recording. Well, it shows you what I know. It's good to be with you guys. Welcome. It's good to see so many faces out there. Some are friendly. I listened to that from Andy, and the biggest takeaway that I get there is Texas isn't right enough right now. Yeah. And you know, what I keep telling people over and over again in my travels, because I travel all over the country, I get to, people introduce me as an internet sensation, which is just a 21st century way of saying I'm unemployed, but I'm popular. And I'm a good time waster, right? Andy talked about watching videos and watching my show and things like that. I'm a good time waster. God's blessed me with an opportunity to run my mouth and make a living doing it. Unfortunately, I have a disease. It's called foot and mouth. And my foot fits right in my mouth a lot of times. And I'm sure many of you men have been told that by your wife. And it's just something that plagues all of us. But I've been blessed and I've been fortunate. And I travel all over this country, and people always want to know about Texas. If they've never been to Texas, they want to visit Texas. I get on my social media, people talk about they want to move to Texas. Whenever people come from overseas, they always want to go to Texas. They don't care so much about going to America, they want to come to Texas. And I've got many, many friends who said, we don't care about the other states, we just wanted to be able to tell people we came to Texas. But the problem is, Texas isn't the Texas that most Texans think it is anymore. Right. We have this reputation that unfortunately we're not living up to. Now, I don't know if you guys know it, and by the way, I am doing my best to raise awareness for conservative causes, to speak with a conservative voice, use the platform of several million social media followers, of a television show on Blaze TV, and everything that I can to try to speak with a conservative voice, which is not very popular these days. It'd be so much easier if I was a liberal. I could just identify as whatever gender I wanted to today, and people would praise me for it. I could use whichever bathroom I wanted to. I could mask up and virtue signal. I could wear 3 or 4 masks, and people would pat me on the back, and then I'd pass out. But I'm trying to use everything I can because I see things going on in the state, and I had this wild idea last July to run for governor in the attempt to primary the present incumbent, our governor. And people often ask me, they say, are you running as an independent? No, you can't do that because you can't primary him. If you do that, you got to run as a Republican. I don't want to take votes from the right and give them to the left. At the end of the day, I don't want Robert Francis O'Rourke as the governor of Texas. You don't either. Right. I was down in Washington on the Brazos this past week, and I was down in Washington County. And I was at a restaurant, and they asked me to speak to a group of a couple of hundred people that were there in the back patio area of the restaurant. And they said, well, I didn't have a microphone. They said, why don't you get up on the table? I said, no, that's too much like Beto. I said, you know, I grew up calling the cows, right? So you can hear me. And I don't want to flail my arms because I might wind up saying something like, oh, yeah, we're coming for your guns. But that's the kind of thing, you know, people don't realize where Texas is right now. I travel all over the country. And people will say to me, they'll say, you know, you need to be more like Kristi Noem in South Dakota. She didn't mandate anybody. Texas needs to be more like that. Texas needs to be more like Ron DeSantis in Florida and opening things up. And it seems like our governor right now, it's almost like watching Back to the Future, because 2 weeks after Ron DeSantis does something, he does something. And I don't like that. We got to lead from the front. But I always tell people, I said, I don't want to be South Dakota. I don't want to be Florida. I want to be Texas. South Dakota doesn't have its own toast. We have a waffle iron. Our beautiful ladies, they put on bikinis every summer and float down the Guadalupe, and it's in the design of a Texas flag. They don't do that in Florida. We have a lot to be proud of. We have a heritage. And we are a state that as we celebrate this Independence season, and I was down at Washington on the Brazos, went to Independence Hall, and we kind of kicked off a campaign down there where they signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. And I literally took a moment, went around back Independence Hall where nobody could see me because I felt a little silly because a little tear came to my eye, and I just got down on my knees and I kissed the ground. Now, just so you guys know, I wasn't born here. I was born in New Jersey. I know. Get a rope. This is that point where I want chicken wire in front of me because I expect rotten fruit. Lived there 4 months of my life. That just happened to be where my mother was while my dad was on a work trip. She went into labor with me. I didn't have a choice in the matter. But I believe that life begins at conception. And I believe in the sanctity of life. And fortunately for me, conception began in Dallas, Texas. Now, don't hold it against my parents that they happen to be in Dallas. I could have picked better places. But nonetheless, right there in the apartments on Valley View Lane, that's where I was conceived. And I know a lot about that night. I wish I didn't, but I do. I grew up in the state of Georgia. And from the age of 4 months on, I went to the University of Georgia. Then I went and was seminary trained at Columbia International University, formerly Columbia Seminary, in Columbia, South Carolina, and was in vocational ministry for a number of years, traveled all over the world, spent the better part of almost 15 years in third world countries, working in West Africa, and working specifically in countries of Central America, such as the ones that are in the news today, the El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras and various other countries that are down there, Nicaragua. Spent extensive amounts of time down there with the people of those countries. I understand why they're coming to the border. I understand why they're coming to the border. There's a reason, and we can talk about that in a minute. But about 20 years ago, I heard a call. There was something seminal deep in my soul. I was in Fort Worth, Texas, just down the road here for a work weekend with a corporate job that I had at the time. And I looked up and I thought, this is not like Georgia. Georgia's tall pine trees everywhere. You got to look up, straight up, 100-foot pine trees just to see the blue of the sky. And I said, I can see the sky out here. I can breathe. And it was something that just spoke to my spirit and said, this is where I need to be. And so 20 years ago, at that moment, I went home, packed up a truck, and I moved to Texas. Now, there's something about Texas that calls people from other places. Our foundation, our history, our independence won by people like a little boy from Maryville, Tennessee, who was rebellious and ran away from his family at the age of 16 and joined the Cherokee tribe. And they gave him the name of Colone, the Raven. And this guy who ran in and out of problems with the law, got shot in the groin at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend and the Battle of 1812. Imagine that. Got patched up and kept fighting. Got married, his wife left him, probably because he got shot in the groin. Left him for a younger man. He got in trouble with the law. He got crossways with a congressman and beat him half to death with a cane. The congressman pulled out a gun. The gun misfired at point blank range. Took the gun away from him and kept beating him with the gun. He met a Cherokee maiden, married her. She wanted to have babies. He'd had a bullet wound. And he heard some clarion call about this need after a Mexican invasion in a land called Texas. So Sam Houston mounted up and he came down here. A man born in Virginia, a man who cut his teeth, so to speak, in Tennessee, lived in Kentucky and Kansas, and then came down here to Texas, and the rest is history, as we know. He was an alcoholic. There were a lot of accusations about him. David Burnett, the first president of Texas, didn't like him. In fact, when he got shot in the foot at the Battle of San Jacinto, He almost died from getting shot in the ankle and walked with a cane for the rest of his life. They wanted to put him on a riverboat when they were evacuating the Texas government down in New Orleans, and David Burnett said, he's not getting on the same boat as me. Don't like the guy. Don't care who he is. There were men in the original Texas government that named their sons after Sam Houston, and later on, they changed their name. How about that? Riverboat captain said, we're not going to New Orleans without Sam Houston on this boat. The man went on to become the governor, went on to become the president. He served as president, Houston, from a city named for him called Houston. And I started looking at the history of Texas and all of these people, the Crockett's and the Bowies and the Travises, and all of these men who were running from something. They weren't perfect men. They came here in the battle for independence from 1800 on. Texas has never mustered a fighting force of more than 1,000 people. But they established not only independence, but a republic. That's the spirit of Texas. That's the Texas we need to be. That's the Texas that gave us these roots. But it's gotten ugly, guys. As soon as I was beginning to play with the idea of running for public office, and let me just tell you, I'm reluctant. I didn't want to do it. It's a bad career move. I don't know if you guys realize that or not. And they have all these rules. And they really expect you to obey them, Shelley, you know? Shelley calls me up and she's like, what the heck are you doing? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant right now. I don't know. I'm a citizen. I'm a businessman. I get to tell jokes for a living. And so a lot of people have looked at me and said, is this a gimmick to you? It's not a gimmick at all. I don't play when it comes to Texas. I believe in the Texas heritage. I believe in the Texas spirit. I believe in the Texas heart. I believe in Texas independence. I agree with my good friend Alan West, who says we don't need to secede, we need to lead. Now, at the same time, I think we would both agree that we should have the right to do it if we need to. We don't need 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., sticking their greedy, bony fingers into Texas issues. We should be able to govern ourselves. We should be able to legislate ourselves. And we should be able to do it without fear of repercussion from a swampy Washington, D.C. that has nothing to do with what's going on in Texas right here today. They don't care about our border crisis. They don't care. I posted the other day on social media, I said, the government hates you. People got livid. How dare you say that? Well, here's the deal. Stop sending them money. And see how good of friends they are. Oh, they want you. They need you. But they don't like you. They don't care about you. If they cared about human life, we wouldn't have issues like abortion. If they cared about human life, they wouldn't treat us like children and put mandates on us and shackle us in and cause businesses to fail and falter. You got restaurants that have a legacy of being in business for 70 some odd years down in Fort Worth that shuttered their doors because of this last year. Why? Because we weren't given liberty, we were treated like children. I don't care if you wear a mask. I don't mind wearing a mask if I need to. A mask, as Christy Noam says, used in the right way, the right mask in the right circumstance, can be good for a lot of things. But don't tell me I have to. I get a little itchy with that, you know what I mean? I don't like it. And so, I think I can take responsibility for my neighbor. Look at Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey hit and what happened? Man, we came to the rescue, didn't we? There were folks down there. I was on Fox News that morning. We had a truckload of stuff ready to go down to Mauriceville in Orange, Texas, because I felt like Houston was getting so much attention, wanted to go down to Southeast Texas. And so we had a truck loaded up. It was early morning. I was doing Fox and Friends. And they said, you know, they always, every time I go on Fox, they want me to be funny, right? And I was like, well, there's nothing to be funny about this situation. But then it hit me. I said, well, one of the big needs we have is bug spray. Because we got mosquitoes so big here, I saw one of them mating with a turkey, and these people are covered up with them down there in the middle of all these floodwaters. I can't tell you how much off showed up. Case after case. I still have a couple of cases of off in my garage these many years later. And you see the images of people with their four-wheel drive trucks, and their big monster machines. Our good friends over in St. Joe, Texas at Rednecks with Paychecks take a caravan down there of these ungodly vehicles and went where the Corps of Engineers couldn't go. And you see people carried folks out. And nobody stopped to ask what their color was, how they identified, whether they were Democrats or Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, Tea Party. Nobody asked those questions. It was neighbors, taking care of neighbors, and that's what happened. And look what happened. Look how it happened. Look at the result. It was a testimony to the rest of the country. So pandemic hits, COVID comes along, and let me just say the biggest thing that I caught from COVID was 19 pounds. It's the truth. I gained weight. I think I've about lost it now. I'm at that age now where you lose weight. I'm 48. I'm not old. I'm just getting older. Things are starting to fall apart. They're just not falling off yet. And I'm at a point in life where I go to the store looking for new shoes and Velcro looks like a good option. You know what I'm saying? It's the truth. I'm at that point in life, see if you guys could testify to this. I'm at that point in life where I go to sleep on the toilet and visit the bed 5 times a night. It's just easier that way. But I'm at that age now where you start losing weight and people want to know what's wrong with you. Are you sick? No, I'm just trying to lose weight. But I did, man. That's all quarantine did. It just made us fat and weak and dependent on the government. It shut down business, caused us to have a stimulus, caused us to infight, caused us to curse each other, caused us to curse our government, caused us to question every institution that we've held sacred in the United States. We don't trust anybody anymore. What are those 9 most feared words that you can hear? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. You know, the same Sam Houston that I told you about a little while ago, he said, you should govern wisely and as seldom as possible. And that's where I live. I think I'm responsible enough to take care of me, take care of my family, my household, my community. I think I'm responsible enough to help my neighbor, look out for them. I think I can handle what's mine, protect it. I don't need the government to come in and do that. But we have grown, even as conservatives, so governmentally dependent that if the government suddenly got small tomorrow, as we talk about, we wouldn't know what to do. We talk about abolishing property taxes. I think property taxes are ungodly. They shouldn't exist. They're not biblical, so in my opinion, they shouldn't exist. I mean, God kind of mandated that to the Jews. He said, don't mess with a man's land. That's the Chad Prather version of that verse. And so I've been talking to economists all across the state, college professors, various economists, and I tell them all, I said, what if I tasked you with this? How would you abolish property taxes? And they said, oh, well, you can't do that. I said, that's not what I asked you to do. I said, tell me how you abolish property taxes. Oh, that's a dangerous issue. Don't get into that. And I'm like, look, I'm already knee-deep in the smear campaigns and the hate and the death threats and everything else. Let's just talk about property taxes. Okay? Those are the kind of issues that I want us to face together because they're exorbitant. We don't need to have high schools and middle schools that rival Division IIA college campuses. Our kids can play on football fields that have metal bleachers. We can shake our cowbells and our jugs full of quarters and blow our whistles and our Freon horns just as effectively there. And we can still have the best high school football in the nation. We don't need all of those. Those are the kind of things we do, but it's a pride issue. And when you start talking to people about taking away certain things, they're like, oh, no, we can't do that. See, that's the whole deal. We're conservatives. We got to cut that spending. We got to cut all of that pork. We got to cut all of those things that have made us fat as a people. You just look around you. I mean, we're dependent on so many different things that we don't even know anymore. We just had this major crisis with the grid that shut down for a few days. And I love it when people from up north say, oh, it's just a little bit of snow. You guys will never survive up here. Well, the issue wasn't it was cold outside, it was cold inside. And I got stranded, man. I got stranded at a resort down at Horseshoe Bay. I'd done a show down there, and you say, well, that sounds pretty nice. Well, I was on the 6th floor, had an inflammation of gout, couldn't walk, and I wore that delivery guy out. But no, it was bad. Power went off there. And you say, well, we got to prepare. We should be ready for emergencies like that. And I agree. I was ready. But man, how many people lost their jobs last year? Not everybody had the money to go to mypatriotsupply.com and buy a bunch of food that lasts 25 years and tastes like. Yeah. Not everybody has that right now. People are struggling. People are hurting. You know, they shut things down. And we've got these windmills out here that are atrocious. And they don't work in extreme pressure like that cold. We saw that. And we saw our government that wanted to blame it on somebody else. Just keep passing the blame. It was ERCOT. It was this person. It was that person. It was, just now starting to see where some folks were getting a free pass, and now they're getting caught with that free pass that they were getting. And I'll leave that right there. But the biggest thing that I've learned is not only are we dependent, we've gotten too big. We're not as right as we need to be. Somebody said to me, I said, I want to make Texas great. I want Texas to be great. And they said, you mean you want Texas to be right? And I said, you're right. If that's not that's what I believe in. I believe in those things, being able to govern yourself. I believe in those things. And I was in South Dakota, July 2nd. I was there with Donald Trump Jr., had just had dinner. I was waiting on the president to come in to town the next night to speak at Mount Rushmore. And I'm sitting there drinking a glass of wine, quite honestly. And I get on the news. It just flashes up. You get a notification. It says, Texas governor passes yet another mask mandate across the state. I finished that glass of wine, jumped on Twitter and said, that's it, I'm running for governor in 2022. I woke up the next day, I had no idea the firestorm I'd started with this whole thing. And then I went out the next night at Mount Rushmore, and I heard the president, as many of you saw, give one of the most incredible, most unifying speeches that he ever gave. And, Donnie T was cool, man. I love Trump. And people say, well, he tweeted mean. You got a pudding-head president in the White House right now who says the other day that it's a mistake for the Texas Rangers to allow 100% capacity at Globe Life Field today. Don't treat us like children. You got 800% to capacity at the southern border in these detention facilities. And you worried about an open-air baseball game? Mind your own business, son. Let Texas take care of Texas. We'll deal with us. You want to deal with the border crisis? We'll deal with the border crisis. Just let us. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, is your governor powerless to this? I said, well, I don't know if it's powerlessness as much as it is unwillingness. My good friend, I was with him last night and today. He just got back from down on the border 7 days. And I said, what'd you see? And he said, well, I can tell you one thing I saw. He said, all the construction materials, the raw steel, the materials are laying on the ground down at the border. Waiting to become a border wall. Waiting to go to work. Hard hats on, just sitting there. Sitting on the steel, waiting to go. According to the U.S. Constitution, naturalization is the business of the federal government. But the original Constitution gave the states the rights to protect their border. 1920s came along, they altered that a little bit because you had some progressive thinking judges that have skewed that over the years, and now we've kind of lost sight of it. But see, that's what government does. And that's what we're seeing happen, not only in D.C., but in Austin. Because it's a fact that there is the potential, if someone is leading you somewhere and they get so far out in front of you that you begin to perceive them as the enemy. And that's where we are in this state right now. Now, we have elected representatives who now want to turn around and say, well, we're going to unmask Texans. Go back to 100% capacity. Doesn't have anything to do that he got 0% in a straw poll at CPAC. When Ron DeSantis was second behind Donald Trump. And then you're going to come out today, and look, I got on Twitter today, credit where credit is due. I appreciate the fact that our governor sent a letter to Major League Baseball, sent it to the Texas Rangers and said, no, I'm going to decline throwing out the first pitch because of the stance Major League Baseball has made against this voter ID act going on in the state of Georgia. It's ridiculous. We won't get into that. That's Georgia's business, but it ultimately affects all of us. These are the kind of things. I'm glad that he did that, but to me, it's too little too late. You can't create a crisis and then solve the crisis and pat yourself on the back and think the court of public opinion is suddenly going to change and be in your favor. You're smarter than that. And I'm not incredibly bright, but I know what happened, and I don't like it. So I was there, Mount Rushmore, and I looked at Donald Trump, and I thought, I'm not some billionaire real estate mogul playboy that has done what he's done and as brash as he is. I'm just a guy that lives in Fort Worth, Texas. But I love this state because it's been real good to me. And I love the people of this state. They've been real good to me. And I'm blessed to be here. And at the end of the day, I saw in that speech the inspiration that said, it's time for people to be free again. And I want Texas to be the Texans that people assume we are. I've always called what we have, this kind of upsets people sometimes, but hear the spirit in which I say it. It's a humble arrogance. We talk about everything being bigger in Texas. It is. We walk a little bit taller. We puff our chest out a little bit. We got our boots and our hats on. And by the way, this didn't start when I moved to Texas. This has always been my life. And we still have Prather quarter horses back home, cutting and reining. I didn't grow up in the rodeo world, grew up in the cutting world. And still have family that's involved in that. And that's one of the things. I came to Texas and, I'd wear a cowboy hat to high school and boots, and they made fun of me. I came out here and I was like, I found my tribe. And so that humble arrogance is the thing that's going to carry us through. It really is. It's going to push us on through. And somebody said to me today, he was from Southern California. He's a pretty wise political analyst. He said, you guys have about 10 years. And I said, I rebuke you, Satan. I don't receive that at all. So you have folks out there. There's some Trojan horses that we're going to face here between now and 2022. And there's a lot of people out there. And listen, I can't tell you, the biggest attacks that I get right now are from people who claim to be on the same side. Yeah. I just refuse to play the political game, Shelley.
Don't blame me.
No, not because of you. You did the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
You did the same thing. Whether that's wise or not, that's fine, but I can sleep at night. Look, I've done a lot of things, folks. I've lived what I call a rock star life for a long, long time. I got a lot of things. You're going to hear smear campaigns, some of it true, some of it not true, and most of it that you're going to hear, I can probably top it. It's a fact. But I believe that God is good, and we just sang a song called Amazing Grace that was written by a former slave trader who found amazing grace. It's amazing we haven't abolished that yet. But I'll tell you, grace is good. And people want me to play the political game. I just can't do it. People tell me all this stuff, and I got to go Google stuff. They're like, what are your qualifications? Well, I'm 35. I'm over 35, and I've lived in the state 5 years. What do you want me to be? You want me to be an attorney? You want me to be a career politician? I mean, nothing against that. It's just not me. It's not who I am. I'm just a guy that's been fortunate enough, by the grace of God, to be successful in business, to build a platform that people, for some reason, listen to. And I tell people all the time, I'm a great time waster. I had no idea a couple of years ago when I put my camera phone on the dashboard of my truck and started talking to it, which for me was therapy, that millions of people were going to start watching my nonsense. And here we are. More nonsense.
With a poke.
With a poke. I don't know how gubernatorial that is, but but at the end of the day, I'm one of those guys who's learning, and I'm not going to join the political cult. I can't do it. I just can't do it. People say, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. I'm like, whoa, I need to do everything. I'm just trying to open a bank account right now. Do you understand how hard that is? Do you understand how hard it is to try to run for public office and obey the rules? You're right? It's insane. I keep looking at Shelly like she did something wrong. Because Shelly called me up a couple weeks ago and she said, no.
I already made that mistake.
Exactly. But suffice it to say, hear my heart, hear my spirit. I love this state. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And given the opportunity, we're going to pursue this thing as far as we can. We're not going to bow out of it. They can come at us, and they will, and they are, and that's fine. It is what it is. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not trying to be a perfect person. I'm trying to use my voice for something good. And at the end of the day, stand for you. And if it stirs up some other guys and gals to get involved, and I think they should, and I hope they do, then my mission's accomplished. Because there's some great people with great opportunities to step into greater roles in leadership in this state, and I want to see them do it. And let's stir them up. I love y'all. God bless you. God bless the great state of Texas. And I appreciate your time. You want to do a question or two? We want to leave that? Do we want to do that? Something? Anybody? Listen, I learned a long time ago that the most profound statement a man can make is this: I don't know. There's a lot of things I still don't know. There's a lot of things we're working on. But are there any questions? Just a couple of them. Anybody?
I do have one that's from Cook County. There's a lot of our people out there that are wanting to know what are you going to do as far as focusing on the border.
So some of that I alluded to, right? And I do believe the state needs to take back its right. They need to finish the border wall. That is one very tangible step that's there. This is a complex issue that has a very complex list of solutions that we need to go to. One of the things we need to do from the state level is we need to make sure that we are supporting as much as we can our ICE and our Border Patrol agents. We've got to do that because they feel left and abandoned right now. I had a friend of mine who came to me and he said he stopped at a Border Patrol checkpoint. Border Patrol agent asked him, they said, how many people did you see out there in the woods? And he said, what kind of people? And he said, you know what kind of people? We're looking for illegals who are coming across the border. And he said, I didn't see any. He said, well, drive back through there and we'll give you $100 a head for every one you spot. Now that's the kind of craziness going on the border. And it gets worse from that. These guys feel abandoned, they feel lost, and a lot of them want to quit. And that's a very thin line right there. They're already busing. I don't have to tell you the problems. Right down there at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center, Convention Center in Dallas, you got 3,000 illegal migrant teenagers that have been brought this far into the interior of Texas for 90 days with no solution or game plan on how they're going to turn them loose at the end of 90 days. They're bringing them in further into the interior thanks to the Biden administration. You know why? Because there's no intention of taking them back to the border or even getting them back home. So it's a scary thing. It's a humanitarian crisis. I say all that to say this. We got to uncover, for one thing, the problem and make people realize what's going on in those countries, because we're sending billions of dollars down there to these countries, and these people are still fleeing. Why? Because they are, even though they're democracies, they're corrupt governments. And these people, some of the best, mind you, some of the best people, anybody with that kind of vision and passion to take their family and run up through the country of Mexico and face the unknowns at the American border, those are pretty brave people. They really are. And I'll take my hat off to them. Those are the best of the best. Leaving those countries with who? The people who don't have that initiative. So they're coming here. This is a humanitarian crisis. It breaks my heart. It really does. And if I were in their shoes, guess where I'd be? Down there trying to get in. We got to figure out what's going on. Why are we sending billions of dollars down there? And those people are running away. That's on the federal level. We've got to shut the lights off here in Texas, so to speak. Now that's going to take some extreme measures. What those look like in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. But I think we're going to have to start deputizing some folks, maybe some retired veterans. We're going to have to go down there and put a show of force on there that says you can't come here. Not like this. This is not the way. But the Biden administration has turned the light on. You remember the old Motel 6? Yeah. Well, the light is shining. They're coming up here wearing Biden t-shirts, for crying out loud. Exactly. That ought to tell you everything you need to know. We've turned the light on, but we got to turn that light off. So it's a complex question. It's a complex issue. It's a complex series of solutions that need to happen. But we got to shut that thing down. The resources are there. The money's there. It's paid for. Build a wall. Start right there. I could talk about that for another hour. Yeah, brother, what you got? Water? Thank you, big country. You didn't spit in this, did you? Thank you. What do you got? Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
I know that you have said that you believe that vaccine exemptions shouldn't be needed.
Right.
And they shouldn't, and I totally agree with you. But given the climate that we're in today and the fact that Texas does have exemptions now, as governor, would you veto any legislation that would come through that would take those exemptions away?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So for those of you, to her question, talking about vaccines, specifically talking about vaccines for children to go to school, that's a debate. It's very. I encourage you guys, if you want to get a more informed opinion, go to my YouTube, Chad Prather. Look for an episode from a couple of weeks ago with my friend Jackie Schlegel from Texans for Vaccine Choice. We sat down for 44 minutes, and she straightened me out on a lot of things, and I listened. I'm teachable. And it's an episode called Don't Tell Me How to Raise My Kids. I'm for vaccine choice, all right? If I'm for COVID-19 vaccine choice, I'm for vaccine choice across the board. Now, we have in this state a series of exemptions. I'm not going to put pressure on you like that, that right there. We have a series of exemptions that you can fill out a form, and it's a process you have to go through, but I don't think you should have to go through that process. I think you should be able to raise kids the way you want to raise them, and right now, it's not a good situation. We do have a lot of issues out there with vaccine-injured people. It's a very real thing. We have folks who struggle with that and live with it and will for the rest of their lives. So I think if I have to go to the government and ask their permission for something, I'm on thin ice. And that's where I stand on that. Not always the most popular opinion, but right now, the state has all the power. They have the power. Like you said, what if they come along and they want to get rid of those exemptions? I say let's get rid of them for good and let people raise their kids their own way. See, I'm one of those free people. I'm one of those guys that if you have a kid, you don't want them to have a social security number. I mean, it's your kid. People are like, man, that's radical. Yeah. I mean, it's your kid. That's called freedom. But the government's going to put a number on you, right? Make sure they can track you. Now they're going to never mind. I was going to talk about putting a needle in you, they can track you again. Anybody else? We got to go. I know. Yes, sir.
This is really not a question. This is something that I think the government needs to be aware of, that I believe that I noticed. I work in Saginaw, and before the election, I noticed, I'm on the road all the time through Saginaw, and I noticed a lot of out-of-state license tags. Sure. And I'm talking about a month and a half before the election. They were there. I'm talking a lot about New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, you name it. New Jersey. Shortly, like right after the election, they disappeared. My thought is, they're renting houses by the bundle, coming down here, signing up to vote, voting their way, and then they're going back home.
They're leaving.
Where they live.
Well, I can certainly attest to the fact that that's happening in the state of Georgia. So why not here? You know, and look, if I had my way, if you move to Texas, you should have to wait 4 years before you can vote on state issues. See, I believe being a Texan is not taught. That's right. It's caught. You either get it or you don't. You remember those old squiggly things, the pictures you looked at in the mall, and you looked and there was a shark coming underneath a pirate ship, and some people could see it and some people can't? That's Texas. You either see it or you don't. And man, once I caught a vision for Texas, I've never backed off of it. And I wish we could do that. We have these major corporations that are being brought in here, and everybody's extending that hand to them, the Elon Musks of the world, and HP, all these different ones are coming in here from Silicon Valley, and all of their executives have to move. Their technicians have to move. Their researchers have to move. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know if you know much about Silicon Valley, but they ain't quite red. And we're seeing those issues. We've got, I want to encourage everybody, go to dailycaller.com. Look up the newest article by Victor Davis Hanson that was written on May 1st. The 10 things that we've accepted that are now radicalizing America. Read that article. I read it today and it stunned me. It stunned me. And that's one of those things. It's one of those things. We've forgotten who we are. We've actually put in the needs of non-citizens over the needs of citizens. When you put illegal children in San Diego schools and give the teachers the choice of who they're going to teach, Californian kids or kids from Guatemala, that shouldn't be the choice. It's not. But see, what we do, and I'm going to hush, what we do is we've got this idea that, or we've been told that we're evil as Americans, because we've got such an evil past. And so these poor refugee folks who've had it so hard coming up here now, they should be able to have a new start. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever seen any Mel Gibson movies about what the Aztecs used to do each other.
Forgot about that.
But there's no hands in the world that don't have a history of blood on them, folks. We've all got our sins and our scars, including the state of Texas, but you know what? That's okay. We learn from history and we don't tear it down. And let me tell you something. One of the things that I'm pushing for, regardless of what happens in the days ahead, one of the things I'm pushing for is that we get back to teaching Texas history at the right time, not just in middle school. Teach it in high school. Teach civics effectively. And can I say also that we need to make, before you can graduate from high school, you should have to pass a citizenship exam. People don't know what the 3 branches of government are. Our kids don't. I could do this all night. Y'all are great. But we need to take the reins off of our teachers. We need to get rid of standardized testing. We need to let teachers teach, let teachers evaluate, let the teachers test. Sure, there needs to be some accountability, of course, that goes without saying, but it needs to be there. But this standardized, our kids don't come standardized. I got 5 kids. They're unique. I beat them all. And here's the beauty of having a big family. You don't have to beat them all at the same time. You just cut one out of the herd. And you beat that one while the others watch. Man, it's effective. Belt and a Bible's all you need, folks. Sometimes you can beat them with the Bible. But kids don't come standardized. Why are we testing them in that way? I don't believe in that. Every kid we know nowadays, we got them on a spectrum. We got them drugged up. We got them, we got some kind of disorder. No. We got to get back to parenting and giving the rights to parent to the parent. I shouldn't go to the school and have to give a sample of blood to get my kid out because I need them in the afternoon. I shouldn't have to do that. They're my kids. We shouldn't have to call the folks in Wise County and say, we want to make this a right to life sanctuary. Everybody's got a right to life. The Satanic Temple is suing the state of Texas right now. Y'all heard this story? You know why? Because they want to be able to use abortion as ritual child sacrifice, religious right, to be able to do that in the 3rd trimester. That's happening right now in the state of Texas. These things ought not be. Yeah. Texas ain't the Texas we thought Texas was, folks. And that's exactly right. So, folks, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm here. I'd love to talk to you, visit with you, shake your hand, take a picture, whatever y'all want to do. I don't know why you want that, but yeah. Please visit Prather2022.com. We have an opportunity there for you to donate if you'd like. We certainly appreciate it. Somebody asked me, let me tell you two things, I'm going to shut up. It's kind of funny. Somebody asked me the other day on a newspaper guy who went on to write a horrible article. It wasn't because he said bad things about me, he just couldn't spell. And he said to me, he said, your opponent, talking about Governor Abbott, he said, your opponent has roughly $40 million in a war chest and campaign money. He said, does that intimidate you? And I said, well, no. I said, the average Texan isn't sitting on a war chest of $40 million. You know, you can have television, telephones, and telethons. I'm about telepeople. This is called grassroots. Yeah. It's about shaking hands and saying hello to your neighbor and visiting with folks. And that's what we're all about. And stirring something up in the meantime. I had another newspaper writer, she said to me, she said, you haven't been in Austin. Do you think you could handle that since Austin isn't like the rest of Texas? That's exactly what I told her. I said, I want you to sit there and listen to what you just said to me. The fact that you say Austin isn't like the rest of Texas tells us the problem right there. That's the issue. It's neither in Fort Worth too. Throw Fort Worth in there. Voted blue for the first time in 2018 in the Cruz O'Rourke election. Sad. There's something fishy about that. Well, there's something fishy about Robert Francis, but that's another story. Bobby Frank. I got to hush. Shelley, thank you. Tim, thank you. All you guys. And Andy, God bless you. Thank you for having me in here. Remember, Prather2022.com. I appreciate you guys. You're like, oh, yeah, I promise you guys, I'll disappoint you if you're looking at me as a man. I'll disappoint you every time. But I will work hard to make sure that I'm learning. My pastor used to tell me, be a fatso. Be faithful, be available, be teachable, be a servant, spirited person, and be obedient to what God tells you. So I've done all I can in all of my stumblings, all of my travails, and all of my faults, and all of my mess-ups with my foot and mouth disease to be a fatso. Even though I'm trying to lose that COVID-19. I love y'all. God bless you. Thank you guys so much. Andy.